I'm jamming to that.
Absolutely. So, welcome to the Upland History series. I'm Too Stupid to Win, and I'm joined by ThankMeLater. We're the Upland property experts. We're starting a new series looking at different historical aspects of the Upland Metaverse. And of course, we're going to start with the Genesis property. We're going to cover the overall history of the Genesis property from the minting, the contest that awarded it, and how ThankMeLater ended up with the Genesis property. It's a pretty interesting story. And we
Oh
looked
yeah,
at,
no, it was drama filled. It was definitely a drama filled week, like for sure.
and in the middle of the week, they dropped the Genesis rings that you could purchase, and they were only up for 2 hours. They also was a very anxious that whole week, the first Genesis week in Upland. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
pretty,
What was that? That's the highest priced block explorer ever sold?
yes,
It was what, 5,000,
3,000.
3,000? Yeah. I,
I was contemplating the 3,000 and I was going back and forth and back and forth. And luckily, Dizzy bought it because that took a lot of the angst away from it.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. That was back when like 3,000 was like a really big deal. I think he had just put in like 5,000 or something like the day before too. Within like 24 hours, he had dropped several thousand, which is funny now because I think he drops that every other day or so, like it's nothing. But yeah, the Genesis rings were part of that as well. Man, what a week! That was a really fun week. I think this is going to be the upcoming Genesis Week 2022 in live in Vegas is going to have some stiff competition, but we'll see.
Absolutely. And we'll probably do an update on Upland history about that.
For sure.
Yeah. So we'll jump right into it. And the Upland property is at 1829 Jefferson Street. So it's an inaugural property, of course, since it was minted in 2019. And it has the Genesis property symbol on it. And that was first minted on June 6th, 2019. Do you know what was the test account name?
You know darn well I don't know what the test account name was. We were talking about it before the show. I can't
I thought you
remember.
figured it out.
Oh no, I don't remember what the test account name was. It didn't have like Upland or anything in it. It what's interesting is this property was always kind of odd, like for those of us, because like they didn't really announce what the Genesis property was until Genesis week. So
Yes.
there was kind of like speculation because I even think it was like one of like the mini games of like which was the first property ever minted in Upland. And this is a very odd property. So again, minted by the team. It's the only property that I know of in production that got minted by the team in this way. It actually is the only property as well that I know of that has a zero interest. It earns no money, even though I have it in the inaugural rare collection. It earns 0 times 2, and yeah, it was really interesting because you could also, this was before you could change what your offers were. So this particular property, because it had a zero mint, you could offer one UPX on it. And so I know a lot of people had put low offers in on it originally. I'm not saying that I did or did not, but
Eh,
yeah.
and you didn't
So
know
yeah,
that it
so
was
the
held by
Upland
the
team,
Upland team.
yeah, it was the Upland team held it, and then as part of the first Genesis week, there was a series of contests that were held. And at the end of the week, one so every winning a contest earned you an entry into the final drawing. They gave away the Genesis property as well as some EOS tokens to the top. I think it was 5 or 6,
Top five.
top 5.
Yep.
players.
Well,
So
second, third, fourth, and fifth, with the grand prize being the Genesis property. And they kicked off Genesis Week starting Sunday, June 7th of 2020 with two mini events. We'll talk about that. And those events lasted for 72 hours. And then they had a leaderboard following that. Tuesday, June 9th, mini event 3 started, and that was a special live treasure hunt, which was kind of fun. Everybody was trying to figure that one out. We'll talk a little more about that. Then on Wednesday, June 10th, you had mini events 4 and 5 go on, and those went on for 72 hours themselves also. And then they followed it up with an AMA on the June 12th. And the 13th, the mini events 4 and 5 were supposed to end, and the contest winners and prize drawings would be announced at a live stream at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that's how it was supposed to work. And it worked kind of close to that.
it was pretty close.
Pretty close. Pretty close. So there's a nice picture of the Upland Genesis property with a nice house built on it, and it's sporting the Ukrainian flag. And I'm surprised that district is so built up as it is. Like, it's the Genesis node, you know?
Yeah, you're such a troll sometimes. Yes, as it were, the node with the Genesis property, you could probably call it the Genesis node, the Genesis neighborhood. That's definitely the block of houses around there. I know people value them a lot, and I'm surprised Marina as a neighborhood, because that's the neighborhood in San Francisco it's a part of, is actually one of the most built out nodes in the game. Although I don't know of any, like, I'm not a part of any active community that's building it, but I've built on my couple of properties that I have there, and other people have too. So obviously there's some appeal to being in the same neighborhood as the Genesis property. So
Yes. So the first mini event was the hot inaugurals. Some of the inaugurals had changed hands at least 3 times, so you had to have four inaugural properties that were minted in 2019 that had changed hands at least 3 times, and you had to hold them until June 10th at 6 a.m. Pacific time.
yeah, and the way they did this is, I don't remember if it was, because was this before or after the Easter event?
After.
Okay, yeah. So yes, it was, because the Easter event in 2019 was, or 2020, sorry, the Easter event of 2020 was the first to do a temporary collection. And then this was the second one, because that was also like a hotly debated thing, because all of a sudden there was a new collection. You put 4 of these hot inaugurals. So they were marked. I don't remember how many there were that matched this criteria. Somewhere between 9, I don't think there was 3 sets, so I think there was 2 sets and some extra worth, but they
Yes.
were very spread out among the community. Like when it started, I don't believe anybody had a complete collection.
I
So
don't think they did. And this really drove the secondary market prices on these set of inaugural properties.
yeah, and it was interesting, because there was a little bit of debate on, like, well, I want this because I want to fulfill the collection. So at the time there was just 21 collections. You could get technically 22 of 22 by having this. But then there was, honestly, I think some people went really hard on it, not realizing that collection was going to go away after the event.
Right.
So they thought it was going to be like a permanent, like, additional mark or value. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Yeah. So definitely drove up the secondary market on those properties. It was quite intense.
And then the second event was the Pinata Competitions. Wombat helped sponsor this one, and they had 3 different practice pinatas to collect on. And you had to have the highest score on that, and they had that up for 72 hours. Whoever held the highest score at the end of it was the winner of event number 2. Event number 3 was the Genesis hunt. So they gave you a nice little riddle to solve, and that was the property that you had to go to, and you collect the ticket. And the first one there, you were the winner of mini event number 3. And then mini event number 4 was the salesman. So whoever sold the most properties over a 72-hour period. And then the first, and then we
Wait,
had the
did you have a slide for that? Huh.
No, there's no slide for it.
Oh. Okay.
But before you got to mini event number 4, Upland was supposed to push an update, and then they had some issues. So due to unforeseen difficulties, the next 2 events will be postponed until further notice. So event number 4 and event number 5 were postponed when new times and details were available. And
Yeah,
that was
was
kind of
true.
exciting.
Well,
that pissed a bunch of people off.
Yeah, because I was going into this week like, first, I need to win as many of these as I can, because I want as many chances to win as possible. Because like I went into this week knowing this was a property I had to have, like just in my bones. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to play this game if I don't have this property. But
yeah, and you could only win 1 entry. So
well,
someone
and
like
they didn't
you,
really
ThankMeLater.
that they came
they
out
split
with
it out.
that a little bit later. Like they didn't say that up front.
Yeah, they did.
Debatable. I didn't see it.
Debatable.
Again, so we'll talk about who won in like in a little bit more detail. But yeah.
But in the Medium article, you could only win 1 entry. So, but the update that they did push had the standard treasure hunt 2.0, the riot mode. So this was the first real changes to the treasure hunt. This is when you got the pro and the director statuses. You could hide the marketplace pins, and then they fixed the inaccurate net worth. A lot of people had some messed up net worth, and then they had collection boosts that were malfunctioning, and the white screen that we all see, it was worse back then.
It was way worse. Like it was that one actually was when you were collecting UpX specifically. Yes. I think like where if you had more than like 100 properties, like you had to like manually collect your UpX or it was going to crash your game.
Yeah. So then we got into mini event number 4. Once the update was pushed, everything was good. That was the most sales in 72 hours. And then challenge number 5 was minting of No Valley. So it was whoever minted the most properties in No Valley.
Which was that the first minting challenge ever?
No, I think Mercer Manor with the Blockchain Heroes was
Blockchain
before
Heroes
that.
was before that, you think?
I'd have to look. I really have to look. I guess
it was after. That feels like that was later because that was like that little marker on that property felt like it was later than that.
Yeah, that might be true. So the hot inaugural winners were ThankMeLater and the Lou Daddy. Both of them locked up the collections there.
Yeah. So again, so this is where it gets a little interesting because the hot inaugural, well, the wombat, the pinata was always going to be, there's 3 pinatas and then it's essentially a 1 in 3 chance to get an entry. So like only one of the pinata winners actually got an entry. So because Lou Daddy and I tied in the hot inaugurals, which again was very heated, there was a lot of like negotiating a partnership, but like it was essentially going to be a coin flip. So they said, only one of you is going to get an entry. And so it's going to be a coin flip, which was obviously frustrating for me because I was like, well, I can't rely on a coin flip. So I was looking to win another one after that. But,
yeah. And with the wombat pinatas, there was accusations about people using programmable mouses and applications that would let your mouse click. A lot ridiculous scores were posted. It was a lot of hot drama going on in the Discord around these mini event number 2 for it. So you had Mr. Lavix, Nippa, and Z Hidalgo kids get a 1 in 3 chance of getting an entry for the Genesis property.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll do that again because it was shrouded in controversy because the scores that some players were getting they were not achievable without some sort of bot. Now, also, I'll give a little like fun fun little like inside thing that the Upland team has always had a shroud of mystery and claimed like there is actually a secret to pinatas that, as far as they're aware, nobody in the community has cracked. So I don't know if that's still like, I don't know if people still realize that, but they said that there is actually like a secret pattern or something to be able to score really high on pinatas. But no one in the community had figured it out. I don't know if that's still true, but I remember that also being. I spent a lot of time on this practice pinatas trying to figure out how to get the multipliers, because when you click it, you see different multipliers, and apparently there is some sort of pattern or strategy. But
Now,
Upland team said
did you try up, down, left, right, BA, start?
I didn't, but maybe I'll have to connect my controller and see what happens.
There you go. Mini event number 3 was Mission Dolores in San Francisco. And so the first person that cracked that code, they went ahead and won an entry there. So Salesman of the Week went to Mr. Monopoly on a huge win, and he earned that title. And Occupy No Valley, that was one of the craziest finishes, I think, still to this day, on head to head on a minting challenge. It was you and LH337, and it was just going back and forth, and everybody was refreshing the leaderboard and watching it as time was clicking down, and you pull it off, and it was like there was just questions for minutes, like who won. So it was insane.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, Challenge 5, I was not able to compete in the pinata. I actually partnered with Mr. Monopoly on the sales contest there, because I didn't really want to have to compete with him on that. So we've kind of partnered together on that a bit. And then Occupy No Valley was like, for me, an all or nothing. Like, I knew I had a 50-50 entry if I stayed out of it. I can't remember if I like coordinated with Lou Daddy of like, hey, why don't you help me out? Lou Daddy and I are super cool. So I don't know, but I feel like back then, like, because it was competition, he's like, no, I'll take my 50-50 chance. Like, I don't need to help you out, like, whatever. Because I was like, dude, if I win, you get 100% guaranteed chance, right? But I think we were still working on building that friendship. Um,
Yeah.
but what definitely did happen is, like, I reached out to a couple of the other people on the leaderboard, and I was like, look, you ain't outspending me right now. Like, I want this. I want this entry. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to sit here and spam buy on these properties until, the time runs out. And so I ended up buying out a couple players at a premium. So I offered them a bunch. So I put it in their queue, and I was like, hey, I sent you 50 offers or whatever. Like, when it's about to, when it's counting down, like, start accepting. I'm pretty sure LH337 did a similar thing. It was the most intense minting, one of the most intense contests I think I've experienced. There's been a couple, but this one was up there for sure.
Yeah. So overall, your mini event winners were for the Genesis Hut, Ludo Messino. Occupy No Valley was ThankMeLater Salesman of the Week. Mr. Monopoly, Hot Inaugurals, the Lou Daddy, and Pinatas was Mr. Lavix, Nippa, and Z Hidalgo. So there was a pre-draw held for the Pinatas, and then they got that all together, and then the grand prizes. Nippa actually won the overall grand prize in the Genesis property, not later, for as much as time as you put into it and as hard as you win and all the strategy that you went into it. Your 1 in 5 chance, you finished number 3. So Ludo Mancino.
That was hard, especially because Nipa was the number one, like, I don't want to say offender, but he was definitely using, I don't even think he necessarily hit it, that he was using a click bot for the pinata contest. Technically, I don't think it ever stated in the terms of service that you couldn't. I don't know. So, like, that's crazy. I mean, to get that, to then win a 1 in 3 and then a 1 in 5. Yeah, so Nipa won it. I had already, like, if Lou Daddy won it, there was no way I was getting it from him. I believe I had already had something in place for Mr. Monopoly, but probably if it had gone to him, I wouldn't have got it. And Ludo, I don't know Ludo because he didn't win it, so I didn't reach out to him. So it was NEPA, and like it was intense. So like I knew I knew right away. I was like, if this hits the open market, so everybody is like chatting, right? Like we're on, I think at that point we're still on Telegram mostly. But
Mostly
all
Telegram. Discord was just started, so it was still that transition phase.
Yeah, so we were still transitioning. Lots of the big players were like debating, like, first of all, it's like, what's this actually worth? What's this potentially worth? Like, we all know the potential there is huge, but what's it worth today? How aggressive are people going to be? And all I knew is that if it got out to the open market, it was going to be a bloodbath. Like, luckily, there was no like Abdullahs or anything in the game yet. K Twice is still enjoying, his life outside of Upland, all of that. But it was a lot of the players. We all kind of went to our corners. Okay, what's it worth? I immediately started to ping NEPA. I was like, hey, what's your situation? Is this something you want? And he was like, he didn't really seem that into the game. He was playing Path of Exile and some other stuff. And he's just like, oh, yeah, cool. I'll take some money. And so we ended up negotiating pretty hard, but it was aggressive. I mean, I think I had it in my possession within 24 hours. Within 24 hours of him getting it, I believe, I mean, we could check the chain to see when the transaction actually took place, but what I recall is it being very, very quick because I was like, I need to secure this. Because the other thing is, like, if this kid drops off the face of the planet, that's a piece of Upland history gone, right? Like never
Right.
to be retrieved again. And so I was like, I knew I couldn't let that happen. We ended up
So
making it. Oh, good.
I was going to ask, what was the terms of you securing the property?
Yeah, so I can't disclose all of the details of the deal, but from an UpX perspective, it was a million upfront, which is what I put on the property, as well as 100,000 UpX a month, which is what I was earning at the time for a year, and an undisclosed amount of USD, which at the time there was no way to do USD in the game. Fiat out hadn't what didn't exist, so that was done off the chain between me and him. And so it's paid in full now. NEPA and I still stay in contact. He doesn't really play much anymore. He comes in. I think he's got a handful of other properties that he bought with the money, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Fiat out didn't happen for about another 6 months after Genesis Week. And I remember once you got it for a million UpX, everybody was like just blown away that you got it for so cheap, and they thought like you ripped this kid off. And there was a lot of hate and discontent around the price that showed up in game about it. And hey, you got there first, so
Yeah, and I mean, people probably would have offered pretty competitive to what I offered, but yeah, I just was like, I don't want to risk it. I cannot risk this going to somebody else. It was very important to me. It's still very important to me. So, yeah, I did. I was very aggressive, and I consorted with like you, Mr. Monopoly, a couple other close friends, and like I think the amount was very fair for the time. Like it was by far probably the highest secondary sale of a
yes.
property at that point. Like obviously it's been beaten now, but at the time, I mean, it was an extraordinary amount of money to pay for a property that earned no interest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But this is a quick Upland history of the Genesis property. Do you have any closing remarks before we close out this video?
no, thank you for listening to the history. I hope you like this series, and we'll bring you some more interesting facts and behind the scenes of some of Upland's most iconic moments.